Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We want to welcome you to the August 11th, 2026 meeting of the Escondido Planning Commission. We will call the meeting to order. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Could we get the roll call, please?
Chair Spear,
Present.
Vice Chair Stevie, Commissioner Weiler,
Here.
Commissioner Carell, Commissioner Gustafson,
Here.
Commissioner Jester,
Here.
Commissioner Maccaro.
Okay. In the approval of the minutes for June 9th, 2026, do we have any exception taken to the minutes as presented? All right. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the minutes of June 9th, 2026.
A second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Can we call for a vote?
Motion to approve the June 9th, 2026 meeting minutes. Chair Spear,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiler,
Yes.
Commissioner Gustafson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jester,
Yes.
and that's everyone. The vote is 4-0 to approve the June 9th, 2026 meeting minutes.
Thank you. Okay, we will move to current business. Item number 2 on the agenda for tonight is a public hearing, and that is L26-0240 Senate Bill 79 Implementation Ordinance. And I believe we had this presented informationally previously, but I believe we have a presentation by staff today as well. Go ahead.
That's correct. Thank you very much, Chair Spear. Well, good evening, Chair Spear, Commissioners. My name is Joel Savetko, Senior Long Range Planner, and I'm here to provide you with a presentation on item number 2, the proposed Senate Bill 79 Local Implementation Ordinance that will administer this significant state transit area upzoning law in a manner that is sensitive to Escondido's local context. Tonight, I'll briefly recap the May 26th briefing and what's changed since then, discuss impacts to Escondido, explain how the proposed ordinance would work, and conclude with staff's recommendation. At the May 26th PC hearing, we reviewed SB 79's requirements, local impacts near the 2 Sprinter stations, and implementation options, including exemptions and temporary exclusions. Since then, SANDAG released their draft regional map, confirming staff's initial analysis was accurate. SB 79 went into effect on July 1st, and staff refined local mapping to determine parcel-level eligibility. Tonight, before you for consideration, is a zoning code amendment adding Article 81 to the code to implement the TOD standards, including a new TOD overlay zone that identifies where the law applies and how it will be administered. As a brief recap, SB 79 establishes 3 development bands around each qualifying Sprinter station in what is known as the TOD zone, with the greatest intensity closest to the station. These standards determine what the city must allow for a qualifying project on sites zoned for residential, commercial, or mixed use. They include heights of 55 to 85 feet, which amount to about 5 to 8 stories, densities of 80 to 140 dwelling units per acre, and residential floor area ratios of 2.5 to 4, meaning residential building square footage can total 2.5 to 4 times the lot size. To qualify, a project must include at least 5 homes, provide at least 30 dwelling units per acre, and comply with unit size and affordability thresholds, subject to displacement and replacement housing protections. As you can see here, in terms of raw numbers, the new development standards significantly increase residential capacity around the sprinter stations, especially in the vicinity of Escondido Transit Center, where collective yield is nearly quadrupled across 480 impacted parcels, increasing from almost 6,000 theoretical units to over 22,000. Around the Nordall Road station, only 4 commercial parcels qualify, resulting in a theoretical capacity of 212 units. The rest of the Nordall TOD zone is either industrially zoned and therefore not subject to the law, or is outside the city. Now let's move on from the recap of May's briefing to discuss how staff approached the implementation ordinance. For starters, staff categorized parcels in the TOD zones into the buckets shown here. The 484 impacted parcels fall into 3 categories: qualifying, exempt, and phased implementation. Qualifying parcels are sites with eligible zoning that have pedestrian access to the transit stop via a walking path of less than 1 mile. Exempt parcels are properties that have eligible zoning but lack a walking path to the station and therefore can be exempted per the law. The ordinance before you would exempt those properties, of which there are 200, unless or until such a walking path is constructed. We'll discuss the process for turning an exempt site into a qualifying site in a subsequent slide. Now, 15 of the 484 impacted parcels are subject to phased implementation because they contain locally registered historic resources. The ordinance temporarily delays application of the new development standards on these properties until approximately mid-2032, as allowed by the law. About half of the phased implementation parcels are also exempted by the walking path standard. These properties may only qualify after securing the necessary walking path and expiration of the phased implementation period. Finally, excluded parcels are sites within the TOD zones that do not qualify because they are not zoned for residential, commercial, or mixed use. These include parcels zoned for industrial uses, civic and cultural sites like the California Center for the Arts, parks like Grape Day Park and West Side Park, and rights-of-way such as roads and flood control channels. So now that we've defined and organized the parcels affected, let's take a closer look at the walking path exemption. SB 79 allows the city to exempt properties where no walking path under 1 mile exists between the site and the transit stop. This provision of the law recognizes that transit-oriented development depends on residents being able to safely and accessibly reach transit. As illustrated here, a site may fall within the half-mile map radius, but sidewalk gaps can prevent a continuous walking path to the station. To address safety and accessibility, the ordinance uses objective criteria informed by the Americans with Disabilities Act and pedestrian accessibility standards, as well as definitions used in HCD-administered housing programs. Applying those criteria reduces theoretical capacity around Escondido Transit Center by about 4,300 units. That capacity may be restored on a site-by-site basis by applicants entering into development agreements that secure the improvements needed to create the required walking paths. An exempt parcel that is not connected to the TOD stop by a walking path of less than 1 mile may become a qualifying parcel through a development agreement. The development agreement secures the design, funding, construction, timing, access, and enforcement necessary to provide the missing pedestrian connection. Once approved by the City Council and recorded against the property, the agreement establishes the parcel's eligibility under Article 81, allowing a qualifying SB 79 project to proceed through the applicable development review process. The agreement must require the path to be completed and open for public use before the first occupancy. Through this mechanism, the city can advance public health and safety while ensuring that high-density projects have the pedestrian access necessary to support functional transit-oriented development. The ordinance's other major implementation tool concerns historic resources. There are 15 locally registered historic properties within the Escondido Transit Center TOD zone. Article 81 phases SB 79 implementation on these parcels until 1 year after the 7th cycle housing element deadline, as allowed by the law, which works out to mid-2032. About half of these are otherwise qualifying parcels. For those properties, the SB 79 standards become operative when the phasing period ends. The other half are both exempt and phased. For those parcels, both conditions must apply to qualify: the conclusion of the phasing period and establishment of a walking path via development agreement. This provides a temporary period to coordinate SB 79 implementation with the city's existing historic preservation framework, while still preserving future housing opportunity. Now let's look at all the different parcel classifications together. So this is the TOD overlay zone map for the Escondido Transit Center TOD zone, included in the zoning code amendment as figure 33, 1672.1. In accordance with the official Sandag map, the overlay map applies SB 79's distance bands around the transit center, with lighter shading as you move away from the stop and development standards decrease in intensity. Excluded parcels are shown in white. As you can see, parcels exempted due to lack of a qualifying walking path are hatched to the right, and parcels subject to phased implementation are hatched to the left. Parcels with both exempt and phased protections are dotted. And here's the TOD overlay zone map for the Nordall Road TOD zone, included in the zoning code amendment as figure 33-1672.2. As discussed earlier, only 4 properties qualify for SB 79 due to the area's industrial nature. These properties, all in the quarter-mile band between Mission and the 78, are commercial properties currently developed with gas station and convenience store uses that could collectively fit about 200 residential units if developed under SB 79. The Nordall TOD zone will have a greater impact in San Marcos. Staff will continue to work with City of San Marcos staff to coordinate on potential impacts of possible future SB 79 development north of the 78. With that, staff recommends adoption of Planning Commission Resolution number 2026-07, recommending City Council adoption of ordinance number 2026-15, implementing SB 79 in Escondido, including the new zoning code Article 81, the TOD overlay zone map, partial inventories, and related findings. This concludes staff's presentation, and we're available to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Appreciate it. Do we have questions for staff from the commissioners?
I've got a question. I didn't have a chance to read the ordinance, but is there criteria for the TOD walking path?
Yes, there is. Thank you for the question. There is criteria, including some ADA accessibility criteria. We wouldn't require, if there's an existing walking path and it's substandard, we wouldn't require it to be improved to be, like the highest quality sidewalk or walking path it could be. But we want to make sure that there's at least a continuous pedestrian connection to the stop so that, pedestrians aren't walking in the road to get to the transit stop.
Yeah, so there is a criteria within the ordinance.
There is, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
correct. Yeah.
A follow-up to that question on criteria for that path. I think you'd mentioned that ADA is required as well, so if there's a huge elevation change, that becomes an issue, I
That-
assume.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Spear. Yeah, that is correct. And, in the area that is most impacted by the walking path exemption, you can see there with the right hatch, that's, a topographically challenging area. And so, it would require transitions that are, within the ADA's guidelines for the percentage slope. And, in some cases, speaking with our traffic engineer, those slopes can be, they're unavoidable. However, when they are, when you can make them ADA compliant, that is the goal. Yeah.
Other questions?
Yeah. So we just got up on the dais here on August 11th, 2026, letter from Cal HDF. Did staff address these items as a part of presentation and now what we're looking at to approve?
Unfortunately, we did not have time for that. It came in at about 5 p.m. today. But I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the letter here. It was just very last minute.
Yeah, it was last minute, so because of that, I haven't had a chance to really take a good look at it, but it looks like there's some disagreement on that path of travel and how the measurement is made. So I'm not sure exactly how this starts affecting the actual identified properties that are within these distances. So I don't know if we're in a position right now, unless you know 100% that there's not going to be a change.
I can take a stab at addressing that for
Okay,
you,
thank you.
Commissioner Weiler. So the letter was very last minute, but I was able to review it, and that letter does make basically two claims that staff and the city attorney's office have already looked at and decided that we actually disagree with the letter that was submitted. And I'll tell you the two claims basically in a nutshell. The first is the claim that the walking path can't be limited to a safe, accessible walking path. They claim that we have to allow walking on the streets and those sorts of things. We can't require a sidewalk. We can't require it to be ADA accessible. The law actually doesn't define walking path. There is no definition in the code. So we are taking the position that a walking path needs to be a safe and accessible walking path, and we feel pretty confident that there is support for that. The second claim they make is that the city is excluding parcels zoned M1, M2, and various specific plan designations. And they say that's not allowed because commercial uses are allowed on most of those sites. But the difference is the government code doesn't state that we have to allow any site where commercial uses are allowed. What the government code states is that transit-oriented housing must be allowed on, quote, any site zoned for residential, mixed, or commercial. And that's what we're doing, any site that's zoned.
So then at this point, what's the city's response to the letter preparer? That we just disagree and...
Yeah, for those reasons that I just stated, citing the law, the government code, we disagree. And our recommendation, city staff's recommendation in consultation with the attorney's office is to approve the ordinance.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay. I just had it's not a terribly relevant question, but out of curiosity, the 22,000 units that were calculated. There were also 4,300 units that were exempted. In that number of 22,000, has the 4,000 already been backed off, or is it encapsulated in the 22?
It's encapsulated in the
It is,
22,000,
okay.
yeah. So you'd be looking at around 17,000 and change.
Okay, thank you. All right. Barring no further questions of staff on the topic, do we have any public speakers on this?
Yes, we did have one public speaker submit a slip, Wally Pelton.
All right, thank you for doing that. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, thank you for having me here. I represent the Howell Heights area of the overlay of the Escondido Transit area, and this thing is going to extend up into residential neighborhoods, the overlay does, and as you gain elevation there, there's no sidewalks, it's residential. I've lived in my house there 40 years, and I've been in Escondido since 1951. And so I've been in that area the whole time. So everyone on the hillside that I spoke to is opposed to this ordinance, this new change to that only because of it. And with Joel Vetko here explaining this to us tonight, we understand that for us, our best guard against this happening is the sidewalks that would have to be provided to get us down to the transit center. So that's our only hope, and I'm thinking that you guys will review this when it comes in, if this ever happens, and have codes and regulations for this walking path, landscape, whatever should happen. But we're totally opposed to it. This affordable housing thing that they've done to us, common sense has shown us throughout the county that the developers have really gone beyond and overdosed that ordinance and taken advantage of the public on that. And we all have seen that. And so providing no parking for whatever you build anymore, all you have to do is drive down there to these ones where the old police station used to be, where the warehouses were for Allied Storage, where there's a new one where there's a little gas station on Quince and Grand Avenue. There's no parking, and after hours you can't find, it's dangerous driving because it's just cars on either side. So we all have to be careful about that. And I put my faith in all of you that you will look into that and keep it better. And just, this is all about getting housing for people. And if we could only talk to people further up the chain, if there was ever freedom of capital gains taxes for us residents that are older now and we want to sell, we can't sell because we're going to pay all of our profit money into the taxes on this thing. So there should be an exemption. You live in your home for 40 years, 20 years, and it's been your prime residence, and you're over 70 years old, you want to sell it, boom, capital gains should go out of there because there's been such a property
Thank you. Your time has
increase.
expired.
So I know there's a time limit, but I just want to put my faith in all of you guys to look after our side of the pitch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, I believe there was a provision in there in the TOD for developer sidewalk improvements.
That's correct. Yeah, that's the walking
That
path
was my
standard.
understanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
No other public comment?
No other public comments.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We will go ahead and close the public testimony portion for that item and open it up to comments, discussion amongst the planning commissioners on the topic.
I have a question for the Deputy City Attorney. This Senate Bill 79 comes out of the state legislature. So what is it that let me rephrase that. Do we have to prepare an ordinance to implement this? Or, and since that's what is before us this evening, does that give us the ability to provide assistance, I guess, to individual property owners on a case-by-case basis, depending on the circumstances? Or is Senate Bill 79, it's like, look, that's it, you have to follow it, and at this point, you have no choice?
Yeah, the SB 79 is state law. It preempts the city's municipal code at this point. So the purpose of the implementation ordinance, and I actually think that staff might even speak more articulately than I will on this, so if you need to correct me or in addition to me, Joel, you can jump in here, but the point behind the implementation ordinance is to actually have zones that delineate, that exempt from the SB 79 requirement certain properties that, such as the ones that don't have the walking path that connect to the transit stop. So it's actually exempting certain properties rather than having SB 79 apply to all of the properties in that zone, if that helps. And do you need to add anything, John?
I could just add the citation in the bill is Government Code Section 65912.160 allows local jurisdiction to adopt an ordinance to implement SB 79 locally, including the exemption for walking path, lack of walking path.
Okay,
Is
all right.
that on the handout?
It's in the staff report.
Oh, okay.
So for example, if the commission, well, ultimately this needs to go to city council, but if the city decided not to adopt this ordinance, then SB 79 would simply apply to all of those properties within the, the zone, the half mile from the transit stop.
So, I mean, the way I'm reading this, it's more like a helpful tool for the city because these properties have been identified. The property owner could come in and city staff could pretty quickly say, here's the rules you got to abide by, essentially. Okay.
And on that, I'm imagining a process without passing this revision where someone attempts to apply this to a property that doesn't have a path. Without this, the city could still go through the process of saying, well, you don't have a path. Is that correct?
My understanding is the city could require frontage improvements, but not a connection of the walking path with existing infrastructure.
But the ordinance wouldn't apply if they don't have a path, even whether or not we pass this. Is that correct or not?
If the ordinance is not adopted, then the walking path standard is basically a moot point.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Did you have?
Good evening, Chair. Principal Planner Sally Schiffman. I've been assisting Joel through this process. And just to clarify, the law requires that we only apply objective standards when projects come in within this half a mile radius. So in the absence of an ordinance, staff would not have objective standards to point to in order to require something such as connecting that walking path. We would also be required, staff would be required to look at the raw state law in order to determine what standards would apply per that law.
Yeah.
Whereas in this case, by adopting the ordinance, we have something simple to point to. We have that Article 81. Staff and the public would know exactly what's required.
I like that point. That's a great point, including the public, because it's beneficial for property owners making investments to know ahead of time. Okay, that's good clarification. Good question. Yeah. Any other questions of staff or deliberation on this? Okay. Does anyone have a motion? Would anyone like to put forth a motion?
Motion to approve the ordinance.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Before any discussion before we call for a vote on this? Okay, we'll call for a vote.
Motion to approve resolution number 2026-07. Chair Spear,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiler,
Yes.
Commissioner Gustafson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jester.
Yes.
The vote is 4-0 to approve resolution number 2026-07.
Thank you to staff for that. Well done. We will move on now to item number 3 on the agenda in our public hearing. This is PL 23. It is the Brotherton Road, Alexan Bethel Baptist Church. And we will begin. Are there any disclosures of the commission that you would like to make?
Yes.
Commissioner Weiler?
I've driven past and through the site just before the hearing last weekend, so I have a pretty good understanding of the layout. I've also had a brief discussion with the applicant, and I've also had various discussions with the community at large, just so I've got a good understanding of where a lot of people sit on this, and I don't think it will jeopardize the way I view this in my vote.
Okay, thank you.
This will be a question for Dare. I owned a property within 1,000 feet of the project, which I recently sold, so I no longer have a vested interest. Should I?
If you no longer own the property and you have no financial interest in it, then
Thank
don't
you.
need to worry about it.
I will disclose that I met with the applicant as well, and similar discussion to be informed of the project. I don't feel that any of that discussion would preclude me from participating tonight. All right. With that, we will move on to staff presentation. Alex.
Thank you, Chair Spear, and good evening, Commissioners. Ivan Flores, Principal Planner with Planning Services, and I'll be presenting on item 3 tonight, this evening. Here we see a brief agenda outlining some of the topics we'll be discussing this evening. First, we'll start off with the background of the project, a memorandum that was provided to the Planning Commission today, what the applicant is requesting, the general plan and zone map amendments, which will affect both parcels, the adjustment plat, which will facilitate development of the election on the western parcel, the election site plan, elevations, and landscaping, followed by the Bethel Baptist Church site plan, landscaping, elevations, and grading plan. Additionally, we'll then talk about a grading exemption that's specific to the Bethel Baptist Church site. Then we'll end up concluding with a conversation over the California Environmental Quality Act, public comment and input that we received up to this evening, and staff's ultimate recommendation. On the left, you see an aerial image of the project site. It's located at the southeast corner of Brotherton Road and Felicita Road, addressed as 855 Brotherton Road. As you can see, it's surrounded primarily by residential development to the north, east, west, and south. However, there are some non-residential developments to the north, specifically Miller Elementary, and low-intensity office commercial buildings to the south along West Chicago Parkway. Here we see a close-up aerial of the project site. As you can see, there's a separate parcel located at the corner of Felicita Road and Brotherton Road. The adjustment plat will adjust these property boundaries to facilitate that development on that site. On the existing Bethel Baptist Church site, there's approximately there's 3 buildings, an existing sanctuary building approximately 24,395 square feet, which was constructed in 1976. A northern classroom building identified as Building A, which is approximately 7,576 square feet, and a southerly classroom building identified as Building B, which is 7,340 square feet and was constructed in 1993. Over the last several decades, there's been multiple conditional use permit modifications to facilitate the development as you see it today. Earlier today, a memorandum was provided by planning staff to the commissioners to discuss, to provide an overview of a request by the applicant to remove the request to increase the daycare enrollment from 70 children to 200 children, removing the request to operate Monday through Friday, and removing the request to allow an increase in staff from 10 to 15. Recommendation of the CUP modification this evening is limited to the continued operation of the existing religious and daycare facility. An additional memorandum was provided to the planning commissioners, which included an errata to the final EIR and CEQA findings. The errata document's minor non-substantive edits to the mitigation measure known as Hazard 1. Greg Mosef, on behalf of Trammell Crow Residential, has submitted an entitlement request to do the following things. The first item is a general plan amendment to amend the land use map in Chapter 2 of the adopted 2012 general plan to change the land use designation from planned office to Urban 5. Urban 5 allows up to 30 dwelling units per acre. In conjunction with that, they are requesting a zone map amendment to change the existing zoning from residential estates, RE20, 20 denoting the minimum lot sizes, to very high multiple family district, R530. This would create consistency with the proposed general plan amendment. Additionally, the applicant's requesting approval of a major plot plan and design review permit to facilitate construction of 258 multifamily units on the election site, inclusive of a density bonus request, which I'll go into detail later. And then finally, as I stated earlier, there's a conditional use permit modification and design and review permit for the existing religious facility. They will be demolishing the existing sanctuary on the western wing and constructing it on the eastern side of the classroom buildings. The building will be approximately 24,627 square feet and includes sanctuary seating for approximately 600 people, an entryway and foyer, offices, meeting rooms, kitchen, and storage. Finally, they are requesting approval of a grading exemption to allow construction of fill slopes and retaining walls up to 12 feet high on the easterly property line. This grading exemption is specific to the Bethel Baptist Church site. And then finally, an adjustment plat to adjust the existing property boundaries. On the left side, you see the existing general plan land use designation of planned office. Specifically, this development was identified to be within the Felicita corporate target area, which encompasses approximately 87 acres. When the city adopted its 2012 general plan, the city had identified this area and those parcels that you see denoted as PO as an opportunity area for office development that increases employment densities and the city's median wage. The 2012 general plan EIR studied approximately 3,042,218,000 square feet of non-residential development across all these parcels. The development envisioned in that area would be approximately 1 to 3 stories tall and primarily consist of office buildings. Now what you see on the left side is the land use map amendment to change the planned office designation to Urban 5. As I stated earlier, the proposed general plan land use designation is Urban 5, which would allow for 30 dwelling units per acre. As discussed in the adopted 2012 general plan, this land use designation is appropriate along major thoroughfares and commercial areas and encourages buildings between 2 to 4 stories in height. As detailed in attachment 6 to the Planning Commission staff report, the proposed general plan amendment would be consistent with several general plan policies. Now what you're seeing on the left side is the existing zoning district of residential estates. This zoning district is not consistent with the adopted 2012 general plan. Any development on this site that would be consistent with the adopted general plan would require a zone map amendment to rezone the property from residential estates to planned development office. That could encompass office buildings ranging from 1 to 3 stories in height. And based on the allowable floor area ratio of 2.0, and the floor area ratio is how much of a building could be constructed on a site, could introduce a 1,291,995 square foot office building. Here now we see the R530 zoning zone designation on the left side. The proposed zoning district of R530 would be consistent with the proposed general plan amendment. Multifamily developments of permitted use on this site, subject to the approval of the zone map amendment, and religious facilities and daycare facilities are conditionally permitted use. This zone map amendment would facilitate the development of the election, and it would also allow for continued operation of the church and the daycare facility. Now what you're seeing on this screen is the adjustment plat. The red line that is adjacent to Felicita Road is the existing property line. As a part of the adjustment plat process, the applicant will record a boundary adjustment to show the new property line, and this has to be done prior to building permit issuance. Now what you're seeing is the proposed parcel A, which would encompass the election site, and proposed parcel B, which would be the Bethel Baptist Church site. So now we're going to start focusing on the election, which is the parcel on the west. As discussed in the staff report, the applicant is proposing to deed restrict 13 13 of the allowable 238 dwelling units for very low-income households. The top row that you're seeing is what's allowed under the proposed general plan amendment, which was 237 units, 237.6, but as required by state law, that's rounded up to 238. Of those 238, 13 of those will be deed restricted for very low-income units. Now what you're seeing on the row after that is the allowable bonus units. The applicant is requesting an 8% increase in density when they're allowed a 20% increase. This would amount to 20 bonus units for a total of 258 dwelling units. As a part of this density bonus request and as permitted, as required by state law and Article 67 of the Escondido zoning code, the applicant is entitled to one incentive concession and multiple waivers, unlimited waivers. As discussed in the staff report, the key distinction between these two items is that an incentive or concession is related to a reduction of a development standard that would allow the project to be financially feasible, and a waiver is limited to anything that physically precludes the development from occurring. So in this case, the applicant is utilizing a waiver on open space, where the zoning code requires 85,600 square feet of open space. The applicant will be providing 74,800. They are using their incentive and concession on the allowable projection into the front yard setback, and I will show that on the site plan. They're utilizing remaining waivers on private storage. As you can see, 20,000 square feet cubic feet is required per unit. 80 cubic feet are required per unit, so in total of 20,640 would be required, and they are providing 16,256. Additionally, the allowable floor area ratio for the site is 0.90, and they will be exceeding that up to 0.94. In addition to these incentives and concessions and the density bonus, the applicant is also invoking AB 2345, which allows utilization of state-mandated parking ratios for eligible projects. So here we see the election site plan. As you can see, there will be secondary access provided on Brotherton Road with the primary entrance provided on Felicita. There's going to be approximately 10 residential buildings on this site, including a leasing office and club room adjacent to the community pool area, which is going to be approximately 35 feet in height. And furthermore, a pet spa is also proposed. A pet spa is proposed towards the easterly property line and would be for resident use only. Here, the buildings along Brotherton Road are identified as Building A. These are consisting of 2 to 3 bedrooms. And then what you're also seeing on Felicita is Building B. Building C is within the interior of the site. And Building D, which is the tallest of the buildings and will be shown on the next slide, is within the interior and is approximately 4 stories in height. As I stated earlier, the applicant is invoking AB 2435, which allows for the use of state-mandated ratios. Under AB 2435, the applicant is only required to provide 331 spaces. However, they will be providing 441 off-street parking spaces, consisting of 169 garage spaces, 220 open parking spaces, and 52 carport spaces. Here we see Building B and Building D. These buildings are representative of the remaining buildings with the exception of Building D being the tallest, which there are 2 of. At the top image, you're seeing Building B, which is approximately 39 feet in height and will be along Felicita Road and approximately 3 stories. And Building D is located within the interior of the development and will be 52 feet in height and 11 inches and will be 4 stories. The exterior material consists of white plaster exterior, terracotta tile roofs, brown trellises, wood corbels, and decorative clay vents. Additional elevations are provided in the Planning Commission resolution as Exhibit B. Here we are seeing the landscape plan that's proposed. As I stated earlier, The applicant is waiving the requirement to provide full open space. However, they will be providing 74,801 square feet. This open space consists of common open space, private open space, and indoor amenity space. Additionally, over 300 trees are proposed throughout the development. A diverse tree palette is proposed consisting of Australian willows, Brisbane box, Mexican sycamore, and coast live oak. Here at the bottom right, what you're seeing is a zoomed-in image of the amenities proposed, which include a resident swimming pool, jacuzzi, and deck area. Now we'll be moving on to the Bethel Baptist Church site, which is located to the adjacent parcel. What you're seeing on the bottom right is the proposed building addition in red, blue as the existing building, orange is the trash enclosure, and yellow is the outdoor fields. The project includes demolition of the existing 24,000 square foot building and reconstructing it on the eastern wing, and with approximately seating for 600 attendees. On the top, you see the north elevation facing Brotherton Road. The building at its tallest point, which is the tower steeple, is approximately 42 feet in height and would be consistent with the proposed zone map amendment height limitations, which is 75 feet. The buildings themselves the building itself is approximately 29 feet and 11 inches. Here you see the material that's proposed. We have 1A, which is stucco and shown on the exterior of the building, metal panels, wood-like ceramic tiles, and stone for the actual tower feature. There are no specific tree requirements for religious facilities. However, there are tree planting requirements in the parking lot requirements, and street frontage street tree requirements. The applicant will be proposing approximately 242 plantings throughout the site. Landscaping is provided along the site's frontage and throughout the development footprint. The project complies with Article 62, which regulates water usage, allowable water usage. Additionally, a diverse tree palette is also proposed, consisting of Australian willow, crepe myrtles, white pines, coast live oak, and Mexican sycamore. As I stated, the applicant's also requesting approval of a grading exemption to permit fill slopes up to 12 feet in height along the eastern property line. What you're seeing is the proposed grading design, and the image to the right is the close-up aerial or close-up image of the area that's going to be affected by the fill slopes. The retaining walls are located approximately 5 feet from the easterly property line and range from 3 feet to 5 feet in height, with the maximum slope being 12 feet, which is inclusive of those retaining walls. Now, as it pertains to the California Environmental Quality Act, which I will refer to CEQA for the remainder of this presentation, a notice of preparation was issued on September 21st, 2023, soliciting comments on the preparation of the CEQA document. A virtual scoping meeting was held on the month of October. During that period, a draft environmental impact report was circulated for a 45-day review period from January 22nd to March 9th. During that period, the city received approximately 41 comments received by interested parties and the public. Pursuant to the CEQA guidelines, the final environmental impact was prepared and includes the following: responses to those comments that were received during that time, CEQA findings, and a mitigation monitoring and reporting program. None of the comments that were received contained new information in the context of the CEQA guidelines, and recirculation was not required. The draft environmental impact report identified impacts to the following resource areas: biological resources, cultural resources, hazards and hazardous materials, noise, transportation, and tribal cultural resources. However, as discussed in the staff report and in the draft EIR, all these impacts can be mitigated to a less than significant impact. Tonight's recommendation includes recommending certification of the final EIR, adoption of the CEQA findings of fact, and the adoption of the mitigation monitoring and reporting program prepared for the project. On the left, what you're seeing is the radius map that's provided by our graphics department, indicating who received the public notice of public hearing this evening. As required by the Escondido zoning code, mailers were provided to property owners within a 500-foot radius. On-site posting along Felicita and Brotherton Road was done on July 22nd. Those mailers were mailed out on July 15th. And it was also posted in the Times Advocate on July 16th. Overall, the city has received approximately 101 public comments on the project, with 51 in opposition and 56 in support. As detailed in the Planning Commission staff report, city staff have received a number of comments, which were received during the public circulation of the draft EIR and comments leading up to this evening. Most of those comments focused on traffic congestion and lack of sidewalks, community character, hydrology and drainage issues, impacts on property values, and the provision of affordable housing, in addition to other comments that were provided this evening. These comments, as I stated earlier, the city prepared a response to comments received during the draft public EIR, and those are included in the final EIR for the Planning Commission's consideration. As discussed in the Planning Commission memorandum that was provided this evening, there are several amendments that need to be done to several of the documents that were published in the Planning Commission staff report. Specifically, those documents are the amended Planning Commission Resolution 2026-08, amendments to the Bethel Baptist Conditions of Approval, amendments to Exhibit J, Findings of Fact, and amendments to Exhibit I, the Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program. These modifications are necessary due to the removal of the daycare enrollment increase. However, the memorandum details what the Planning Commission needs to do this evening to recommend approval based on those edits. That'll conclude staff's presentation. The applicant is also present this evening and has a presentation prepared, and we're here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flores. Great presentation. Appreciate it very much. Is the applicant ready to present? Welcome.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Greg Moiseev, and I'm here as a representative of the project applicant. I'm also a lifelong resident of San Diego County, having spent time growing up in Rancho Bernardo and Escondido. I'm incredibly excited to be part of a project located so close to home. Before I begin, I would like to thank city staff for all their hard work over the last 3 years and the informational presentation just shared. Can you click it? As staff shared, our proposal is located on the property that is the current home to Bethel Baptist Church. The church has a 77-year legacy in Escondido and has owned this very property since the early 1970s. Over the years, the church's aging facility with deferred maintenance and inefficient design has become a financial and operational challenge. Over the past few years, the church has sought a path to build a new, modern church campus that meets their current and future needs. Unfortunately, the complexities of development in California, coupled with the site's current general plan designation, stifled what was financially and feasibly possible for the church to undertake. As a result, the church needed to arrange an innovative solution that would help them overcome these challenges. And that solution is the plan before you tonight. It will support the church's vision to create a new church campus while also delivering high-quality housing in Escondido. Under this proposal, 8 acres of the existing property would become the residential project, and the church would redevelop on the remaining 6.5 acres. The solution supports a bright future for Bethel Baptist Church to continue its local legacy for generations to come. It also increases new housing and benefits that will make a positive impact in Escondido. Tonight, our entire proposal, including both the church and residential, is before you for consideration and recommendation, and I look forward to sharing more details about the proposal. But first, I want to share some broader context to this property. As mentioned earlier, the City of Escondido's general plan currently designates this property as planned office, which allows master planned office campuses. Its proximity to the freeway and visibility made this area a rational location for dense corporate campuses. But changing work patterns and economic factors have shifted significantly since the general plan update, rendering this use type infeasible. The planned office designation would allow nearly 1.3 million square feet of office space on this property. The Bethel Baptist Church redevelopment proposal, with both the church and residential developments combined, would total only 390,000 square feet. Based on the square footage of this plan, that is nearly 70% smaller than what is currently allowed in the general plan. It is a feasible, smaller, and less intense development that is a better plan for Escondido and the surrounding neighborhood. Now I'd like to dive into the church component of the project. The new church campus will include a 600-seat sanctuary, which is the same capacity as their current facility, but include a more efficient and modern design. The church component also features recreation space, a sports field, basketball court, and more. The church would also provide 207 on-site parking spaces, which is a 38% increase over the requirement. The church congregation envisions this as a hub for the community to gather and worship. The contemporary design church campus will help foster that vision and an extremely bright future for the congregation. I'll now transition to the housing component of this plan. It will feature 258 for-rent apartments and townhomes, 13 of which will be deed restricted for affordable housing units for very low-income residents. As you'll see in this rendering, we've placed architecturally distinct three-story townhomes or one-story garages with landscaping along Brotherton and Felicita frontages. We've placed the traditional larger apartment buildings and amenities in the center of the community, away from the project perimeter and pedestrian line of sight. This gradual increase in product type creates continuity with existing neighborhood and follows a community-minded design approach. We are also incredibly excited about the architecture and design. I would like to take some time to talk about the design elements of this proposal. To ensure we create a desirable community that attracts residents and enhances the neighborhood, we've chosen a mix of high-quality design elements and finishes. We are in alignment with the city in having the desire to deliver the best quality and visually appealing project as possible. It will feature contemporary Spanish architecture with design-forward elevations and articulations. You'll see this project is anything but a plain box. There are wood design elements, patios, roof overhangs, and window treatments that create variation and unique characteristics. Our building exteriors will also feature 20% enhanced material upgrades, including tile roofing, stone veneer, and siding. Even further, the community spaces, landscaping, and amenities will feel like a high-end resort. We'll have an amenity center, gym, pool, co-working space, courtyards, dog runs, and more for the new residents. The buildings will also feature the latest in sustainable, energy-efficient design, including solar and EV chargers. We've also laid out this plan with generous setbacks and landscape buffers from the street and nearby neighbors. As you'll see in this image, we've deliberately added large landscape buffers and spacing from the adjacent property owners on Palm Terrace. I'd also like to point out parking, of which we'll have 441 spaces on site, which is 33% more than our requirement, and is more than ample to support a community of this size. And those spaces have all been directed inward to prevent any headlights from going into our neighbors' homes. The project also creates several community and civic benefits to support Escondido's quality of life, essential services, and economy. First, the 258 new units of housing would advance the city's progress towards its state mandate to build or plan 9,607 units before 2029. This is critically important as the city of Escondido has only made about 25% progress towards this goal, and the city is more than 60% through the current housing cycle. The project would also contribute more than $5.5 million in investment in local infrastructure, parks, essential services, and more. We also found in our research that Escondido Unified School District has experienced an enrollment decline of nearly 14% since 2016. The residential units would help add students into the community to offset the decline and help local schools like Miller Elementary work toward maintaining desired enrollment levels. And lastly, the new housing like this is an economic multiplier, which aligns with the city of Escondido's comprehensive development strategy. New housing not only creates local construction jobs in the short term, but it also attracts residents who patronize businesses, generate sales tax activity, and increase a high quality employee base for Escondido in the long term. In addition to the benefits I shared, this proposal would also implement a series of specific road and infrastructure improvements. These will help ease the flow of traffic, increase safety of pedestrians and bicyclists, as well as enhance neighborhood visuals and continuity. A few key improvements that I'd like to highlight include implementation of over 48 high visibility crosswalks at nearby schools, fire stations, and other critical locations across the city, underground of power lines on site and adding new sidewalks, restriping and reconfiguring lanes to ease traffic flow around Citricato Parkway and I-15, and new four-way stop at Brotherton Road and Miller Ave. Collectively, we are proud to make a contribution toward critical investment and upgrades to some of the roads, sidewalks, and freeway connections in our immediate area and across the city. The proposal before you this evening has been in the process for more than 3 years. We conducted a comprehensive community outreach strategy, including open houses, presentations, one-on-one meetings with community members. In conjunction with the environmental review process, these yielded several key changes from our first submittal that I'd like to highlight. First, we removed 12 units from the total project count, many of which were 3-story townhomes along Brotherton, and replaced them with 1-story garages. This also helped us increase our on-site open space and landscape buffers by 30%. Along the southern property line near the existing homes, we reduced the retaining wall by nearly 7 feet, which also allowed for further landscape buffers between the existing residential. And finally, we understood a main concern from the community was regarding street parking. As a result, we increased on-site parking to 441 spaces for the residential, which is a 1.7 parking ratio. I'll now shift to the comprehensive EIR process. The EIR included comprehensive technical studies across a variety of disciplines, as well as an opportunity for public comment. Ultimately, the environmental impact report made the determination that the proposal will not create any significant and unavoidable impacts. I'm also proud to share the proposal and its associated benefits have garnered strong support from community. We have official support letters from Bethel Baptist Church congregation and San Diego North Economic Development Council, among others. We're also thankful to have the backing of more than 50 community members who submitted official comments of support, and the supporters here this evening with orange stickers on. We're proud of how the Bethel Baptist Church redevelopment proposal supports the city of Escondido. This is an innovative solution that will sustain Bethel Baptist Church's longtime legacy while providing 258 new units of market rate and affordable housing. The thoughtful design, which incorporates community feedback of this proposal, is 70% smaller than what's allowed in the general plan and creates zero significant unavoidable environmental impacts. and ultimately it generates substantial community, economic, civic, and housing benefits for Escondido. This proposal is the right plan for Escondido, and we urge for your recommendation. Thank you again for the opportunity to present this evening. I have our project team and the environmental review team here as well to answer any questions.
Thank you for your presentation and for being here. With that, we'll open it up for questions that the commissioners might have to be addressed to both city staff or the applicant. Do we have any questions for staff or applicant? Commissioner Jesser, go ahead.
Thank you, Evan. I had a question regarding the property line along Felicita. Current property line is 150 feet from somewhere. Curb?
You're talking about the existing property line
Correct.
as shown here?
Yes, on parcel lot 1.
That one. Are you talking about from like the right of way?
Yes.
I'll have to defer to Mr. Tanar, Assistant City Engineer, for that.
Yeah, currently that lot is 150 feet deep from the existing Felicita right-of-way, which is 33 feet off of center line. So anyway, that's where it is now. They'll be dedicating 9 feet of right-of-way as they complete their improvements along their frontage of both Felicita and then the off-site that's actually not their frontage. They'll be doing widening to the south.
They dedicated, was it 9 feet?
Yes, the project will dedicate 9 feet of additional right-of-way along Felicita Road, along their frontage.
So we'd be looking at 41 feet from center of Felicita, correct?
That'll be the right-of-way. The curb face will be 32 feet.
Okay, because they mentioned widening 17 feet.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not tracking on
Yeah,
how they're
right
going to
now,
make.
right now, the existing edge of pavement is considerably less than the roadway is required to be.
So PL's going to move closer to Felicita. There's no longer going to be a 150-foot setback. I'm assuming that red line's a setback, correct?
No, that's the existing lot line that's being adjusted. So that's why I believe that's what this slide is depicting, is where the existing, there's 2 parcels that the church owns out here right now, and they're going to move that line over to the east of where the existing church building is now, and everything west of that will get developed as the residential project.
Did you say, Ivan, that the primary entrance was on Felicita?
That is correct. The primary entrance will be on Felicita Road.
And we are recommending this to City Council, or
That is correct. The action this evening is to recommend this approval of this project to City Council.
Okay. That's all I had of staff.
Okay. Commissioner Weiler?
Thank you, Mr. Flores, for your presentation. It was very informative. I've got a couple of questions, and back to Felicita Road. What's the ultimate right-of-way? I mean, once the dedication occurs by the applicant, what's the ultimate right-of-way, and are there any improvements going to be occurring on I guess it'd be on the west side? Or is that already built out to its full width?
Yeah, the applicants on their side, on their frontage, they're dedicating 9 feet, which will bring the right-of-way to 42 feet. Felicita Road is a collector road in our circulation element, and so the curb face will be 32 feet from center line in its ultimate width. About, 10, 12, maybe 15 years ago, the property across the street developed as a residential subdivision, and they did their frontage improvements to that 32 feet off of center line. So basically, this segment of Felicita Road, when they're done here, will be at its ultimate collector width of 64 feet, curb to curb.
Okay, and then the same question as you move on north of Brotherton, because the proposal is it going to be also to widen that portion of Brotherton, or is it only going to be placing a sidewalk?
Yes, north of Brotherton, is other properties that are not part of the project. They would need to have, also dedicated right-of-way to build the improvements. But the developer is going to build interim sidewalk, a connecting segment of sidewalk from Brotherton up to the improvements that exist 300 feet north.
Okay, and then along Brotherton, no widening is proposed along the frontage. Is that correct?
Yeah, Brotherton remains the residential standard street that it is, and the existing curb gutter and sidewalk will remain, other than anything that gets damaged or any of the driveway openings that need to be closed or new ones built. So that's the extent of the Brotherton Road street improvements.
And as far as parking on Felicita Road, is there going to be any parking allowed on the frontage?
No, it's a bike path, and we're going to optimize as much of the lane widths as we can get there, in addition to the.
So essentially, basically the ultimate road width there does not accommodate street parking. Does it accommodate it on the other side, or are both sides not allowing for on-street parking?
Yeah, most collector width streets, you kind of have to choose, you either have bike lanes or you have turning lanes. But the ultimate is you're trying to get 2 through lanes each direction, and in many cases bike lanes and that left turn pocket turning. So
Okay.
that takes away parking.
Okay. Same question on Brotherton. Is that allowing for on-street parking?
Residential roads typically allow for on-street parking, but what we have here is, although the project's frontage has been widened across the street, you not only don't have the right-of-way, but you don't have the width, I believe, for most of this, where you could allow on-street parking on both sides. And it may even be where we can't allow it on one side. In final engineering, those are things we would be looking at, because it's not just your width, it's your sight distance, it's your left turn pockets at Felicita, the length of that turn pocket, it's pedestrian use, so a lot of things go into allowing or not allow or restricting on-street parking.
Okay, because, and I asked that question for a variety of reasons, but one of them is when I drove up Brotherton on, in front of the church area, because that's where vehicles are coming in and out of the site, I did notice that some of it was painted red. I'm wondering if, as we move into, like you said, the review with the construction documents, is that going to be repainted red in those same locations? Or somewhere close, because of those entrance locations and the proximity of the crosswalk that's further to the east?
Yeah, so, when we're in final engineering, we're going to really be looking at, the new driveway location, so sight distance is going to take away parking that may exist now. But then you also have the width requirements. We might be looking at additional left turn pocket length at Brotherton and Felicita, and that'll take away parking if it was available due to width. So there'll be a lot of considerations. I would suspect that much of the on-street parking that exists along Brotherton, will be removed.
Okay. Another question, and this is probably for staff, on the grading exemption allowing for the 12 feet, I guess it's a combination of slope and retaining walls. I just want to make sure I understand that right now, the way it's designed, it's 12 feet total. That includes the retaining wall. Maximum height of the retaining wall is 5 feet.
So the retaining wall is located approximately 5 feet from the easterly property line. When we look at the total slope of the height, we look at the height of the retaining wall also. And so I believe the retaining wall on the eastern property line is, I can get that for you, 3 to 4 feet, and then the rest is fill slope.
Okay, so the exemption is not to allow for a 12-foot retaining wall.
That is correct.
Okay, I just wanted to get that clarification. I think for staff, that's all the questions I have at the moment. I'm sure we'll get into others as
Mr.
we
Chairman,
move through this.
I got one more question. The improvements to Felicita will be between Palm Terrace and Brotherton?
That is correct.
It's currently designated as a 4-lane connector, but it's only 2 lanes. So it will be a true 4-lane connector only on that block between Palm Terrace and Brotherton. Is that correct? Or
Yeah, currently underneath the freeway, I believe you have, it's wide enough for, underneath the freeway.
Yeah, but I mean from Palm Terrace to Brotherton.
Right. So this will, from Palm Terrace to the project boundary, they can't quite widen it to the full width because of the right-of-way that's not, those properties that are there. But they're widening as much as they can. And I believe we do end up with a continuous 4 lanes, at least, 2 lanes north. I'll have to look at it again. But they are widening and adding lanes there.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Actually, I want to have a follow-up with on traffic type issues. And looking at the traffic report, and granted, as a part of the CEQA evaluation, they don't look at LOS, but LOS is still located and considered as a part of the general plan. There are some intersections right there at Felicita and Citricato, and entrance onto the freeway that are operating at levels D and E, maybe even F. I saw that there is a requirement for fair share contribution to improvements to bring those, I'm assuming to bring those levels of service back into an acceptable level. I didn't see, and it may be buried somewhere, but I didn't see what those percentages that this project would be contributing and timing on when those improvements would actually occur. Does staff know that?
I can answer some of that, and I know the applicant's traffic engineers is here as well, and might be able to fill in the more detailed. I think what you have here is the project does impact intersections and one segment. The ones that have been identified for fair share, for the most part, are either entirely in Caltrans right-of-way or would require Caltrans direct involvement and guidance. And and then also their fair share, I think the largest fair share I saw was 13%, and that's for the northbound ramps at Citricato is 13%. So the project's quote fair share is 13% of the ultimate improvement that has to occur there. The other off-ramp at onto Gamble, future Citricato, I think was 3%. So those are the kind of percentages we're talking about as far as fair share. And we have determined the dollar amounts for those, and those are in our conditions of approval. I don't know what other specific questions you have, and like I said, the applicant's traffic engineer, I believe, is here that might be able to answer those.
Yeah, it was kind of, go ahead.
Was there a comparison to what's existing and then with the project? I didn't see that in the EIR. With the project, traffic considerations with the project.
That's basically in the simplest terms, a project is, you analyze what the traffic condition is or would be in the future without the project, and then you analyze what the project adds to that.
Yeah, I guess I missed it in the EIR. I don't know what page it's on, so maybe if you could point to it.
Chair, maybe it would be appropriate to ask the applicant's traffic engineer to help answer some of these questions.
Yeah, and Ivan, do you have that, or shall we defer to?
Yeah, so if I may, Chair Spear, so there's a discussion in Chapter 4.11 of the draft EIR that has a discussion on the traffic impact analysis that was done, and that was also attached as Appendix J. But the traffic engineer may be able to speak to the specifics of the study itself.
Thank you, Ivan. I appreciate that. That's existing intersection operations and conditions. I was curious as to what it is with the project.
We invite you to come up. Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Borman. I'm a principal with Linscott Law and Greenspan, local traffic engineering firm, and we did the traffic study for the project. As far as what page, we did do a full comparison of with and without the project. That is in the EIR. I think Molly knows what page it is, or? 4.11-20. And so our firm does determine how much traffic will be added in total, and then what percent will be added to each of the key intersections, including the Caltrans intersections, including the Citricata-Felicita intersection. I'll point out that in addition to the fair shares at the Caltrans ramps, which those are already failed today, so that's why it is a fair share, we're also recommending a second left turn lane turning from Citricata onto northbound Felicita. You can picture that. So that will be a new, right now that's one turn lane, again going eastbound, turning to northbound, and that'll be a double left.
How about the southbound?
That'll stay how it is today. So there is.
So just for expedience sake, do you have a number of increased vehicle traffic with the project per day?
In total or at a certain location?
Just between, let's say, Citricata and Felicita.
Yeah, there'll be an additional 740 cars per day between the project site and Citricata on Felicita.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a bottleneck there. That's why I ask. It's really difficult now.
Right.
So, thank you.
I'm just going to jump. I mean, that number you just gave is a total day, ADT.
Total day, yeah, over 24 hours.
So the peak hour would be typically 10% of that.
Yeah, right.
So from Felicita, from Brotherton to the driveway, approximately 270?
Yes.
Okay.
Again,
And from Felicita, or from Brotherton project driveway to Miller, maybe 200 something?
Right.
Okay.
That's two directions, so 100 one direction, 100 the other, again, over a 24-hour period.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't have any more questions for staff.
Okay. sort of shift gears question for staff. Do we know how many rental units are, do we keep track of how many rental units are in the area? Is that something we have access to or not really?
Not in the immediate area, no.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right. Barring any further questions to staff or to the applicant, we'll move on to public speakers. I assume with this crowd that we have a stack of people that are interested in speaking tonight. Is that correct?
Yes, we have approximately 18 public speaker slips that were submitted.
Okay.
I can name them off groups at a time.
That would be perfect. We would ask, we are very grateful that you have taken the time to come out. We're very interested in what you have to say. Obviously, we have our 3 minutes that we try to allocate for each speaker so that we can get everybody in. So I would just ask that you come up in your time slots and you'll be read off. But if you could please keep it to those 3 minutes, we'd be very grateful. Go ahead. Yeah.
Ron Sabin, Meg Powers, and Mike Hunton.
Good evening. My name's Ron Sabin. We've heard a lot of facts and figures and everything, but we haven't heard any real common sense. I mean, this is a great project if it was in another location, but where you're planning to put it is the traffic is already backed up so far you can't even get on the freeway. Clear from Center City to Citricado, from Center City to Citricado, some mornings, I mean, it takes forever just to get on the freeway there. And then you think about the two schools, Bernardo and Miller, parents trying to get their kids to school and then try to go to work, and they can't get on the freeway. And now you add how many hundred more cars. You look at the poor people that are going to be living in this thing, they're going to try to get out of their parking lot to go somewhere, and they won't be able to get on the road because it's so stuffed with cars already. It's the infrastructure is just not there. It just doesn't work. I mean, right now we have a problem even before this project. So, I mean, the roads aren't wide enough. I mean, I can see if I was living in this project, I mean, I'd be trying to get to work. I couldn't go onto Felicito, so I'd go and try to go down Brotherton and end up on Miller. And Miller's a disaster, that road. I mean, if you look where you get down by the fruit stand, there's big trenches that you fall in if you get too far over. I mean, it's horrible. And I mean, with these kids, when the parents are trying to drop their kids off to school, both at Bernardo and at Miller, I mean, and there's kids walking on the street. People are going to be trying to speed because they're late, and they're going to kill somebody. And it's going to be a little kid. And that will not be worth this project at all, even if one kid dies. Then you think about the water usage. We're supposed to be having a water shortage. They're not going to have water meters in here. They can stay in the shower all day and use millions of gallons of water at this facility. I probably don't have time to keep going, but it's just a bad idea. It doesn't make any common sense. It doesn't matter how many facts and figures you have. These projects never have enough parking. They're going to park out on the street, and that's going to make the street even less viable for two-way traffic. And
Thank you. Your time has expired.
okay, but you get what I mean. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Meg Powers, and I'm a homeowner on Felicita Road. I grew up in the area and attended Miller Elementary. I walked to and from school down Montview and Redwood, where there were no sidewalks and there are still no sidewalks. When school lets out every afternoon, there are hundreds of children in front of and around the school. There are only sidewalks adjacent to the school. Putting in a large complex like the Alexan project will prove dangerous for these children. Felicita Road is already a heavily trafficked road, especially morning and afternoon rush hour. Certain times of the day, it's extremely difficult for me to even exit my own driveway. And if there's an accident on the 15, traffic diverts from Center City all the way down to Villa Rancho, which creates a gridlock and could take up to an hour even for me to get onto the freeway. Putting this complex here will add an additional over 600 vehicles. On average, there's 2.5 vehicles per unit in these types of complexes. This will cause more traffic on Felicita and Miller. Parking in the area is extremely limited. They're saying they're going to put in 441 off-street parking. 674 vehicles is at the 2.5 rate, which means there's going to be 234 extra vehicles looking for street parking where there is none. Felicita Road does not have parking. Around Miller School, it's loading zone only during school hours. A large complex like this would push parking onto these already narrow side roads, creating additional hazards to pedestrians. Additionally, this complex is not on the public transit route. Without transit or sidewalks, more foot traffic will be sharing the road with traffic. With heavier traffic comes more collisions and more 911 responses. As a first responder, I can attest to the increased strain on the 911 systems when large complexes go in. The Felicita Fire Station, which has already had a large increase in call volume with the other complexes that have been built around South Center City and Brotherton, will continue to be strained as more developments are coming to a close, like the one on Sunset and Escondido Boulevard. Felicita Road is a main thoroughfare for emergency vehicles. It doesn't need more congestion. Areas with a higher population density also see a large uptake in crime, car accidents, and vehicle versus pedestrian collisions. There are currently about 24,000 apartment rentals in Escondido, including 76 new units just over a mile away at Haven 76. The county vacancy rate on rentals has recently been estimated around 6.2% on the conservative side, putting Escondido at a 5% vacancy rate. That means there's approximately 1,200 vacant units in the city of Escondido alone. The Marlowe Palomar Heights apartments have so many vacancies they're offering 8 weeks free for people to move in now. They're bribing people to be their tenants. Additionally, there are several other apartment projects in more advanced stages of development that will contribute to this. Homeland Acres was established in 1950. For the past 76 years, it's kept the character and tradition of rural Escondido. The area is zoned for single-family residences on lots of at least 20,000 square feet. This lot is 14 acres, which could come out to 30 single-family residences. Much more appropriate for this area, single-family homes typically include ample parking. I empathize with Bethel and their financial situation, but this project would not affect the majority of their congregation on a day-to-day basis like it does me and my neighbors. Let's keep Southwest Escondido rural. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Could
If
you
I may,
announce the
I'll read
next-
off the next names.
Yeah.
Yes. Nick Testa, Joshua Jones, and Barry Click.
Hey, my name is Mike Hunton. I actually used to work here at City Hall many, many years ago, 15 years ago, and I now currently work in another public works department for a federal agency, so I'm well aware of how this kind of stuff goes. I appreciate all the effort and the work that's gone into it. However, my main concern with this is the zoning, the change of the zoning. That's the reason that there is zoning, is so that it doesn't get changed to something like this where you have residential estate, minimum 20,000 square foot lot size area, and then you have high density housing dropped in the middle of it. As she said, it just doesn't fit the area. It's homeland acres. It's not homeland condos or homeland apartments or homeland high density. It's homeland acres. The sidewalks north there is no sidewalks. Even if this project is done, there won't be any way for any of the people that come into this development to get over to Center City. They'd have to walk through the neighborhood. That doesn't seem to work. The engineering on the streets and the roads sort of proves that it doesn't really fit to put all of these people and all of these cars in this particular location. And the last thing that I kept coming back to was when we were all here as a neighborhood for the alpacas that are just around the corner from this. One of the things that struck me was you guys said, we traditionally listen to the residents, and we listen to what the residents nearest the impacted property or project, what they want and what they feel is best for the neighborhood. And we feel that this isn't good for our neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to us. The applicant really starts with a specious argument that this thing is either you're building offices here. Oh, my name is Nick Testa. There are big offices here, or there's going to be this complex. I think that there's another way, which is to tell them that they need to use this property appropriately. There's two things here that keep coming up. There's a lack of infrastructure for this thing. You keep on hitting on it. There's the parking, the traffic, these things are coming up again and again because it just doesn't exist, and they're not addressing this. I think it's this commission's job, hopefully you understand, is to make that recommendation for them to go back and come up with a better plan, okay? But the lack of infrastructure, the freeway ingress, egress, these things are really a mess. They create a lot of traffic on the streets. When those freeways are backed up, you're going to add this to the traffic that already zips down Miller, Redwood, all these other streets, because people know about the throughways, and this is going to make it worse. Let's see. Yeah, the 1.7 parking spaces, I think that's a dream. And there's just no place for these cars in that local area, so they're going to be spilling out into the bigger neighborhood. And this does present a problem for the kids. This traffic and the parking and things like that are going to present a problem for those kids coming through that school, to that school. Go there on a Sunday. Look at the soccer field that's going there. All the cars are all around there. And you're going to put this in addition to that. There's just no infrastructure for this. Okay? The other element of this is the nature of our neighborhood. It is a single-family residence neighborhood. You're going to put this big complex. You know, I understand they're putting these out on Center City. You got access to major roads right there, but you're putting this in the middle of a residential neighborhood, this complex. It just doesn't fit the neighborhood. It is a poor use of the neighborhood. And I recommend you don't pass this zoning change. Don't go to the zoning change. Make them live within the rules that they got. Okay? They can make it a residential neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joshua Jones. I've been a resident on Miller Avenue since 2009. Raised 3 kids in our house. We've watched, in the last few years, Hacienda de Vega, Canterbury Gardens, Woody's, and the welding shop on South Escondido be turned into these high-density housing units. We've also seen, as many of the speakers have said, how traffic has overflowed onto the streets and into adjacent neighborhoods. Miller Avenue is particularly concerning to me because it is a thin street. Ditches on both sides, and if you go out to the end where it adjoins Citricato, they've tried to put up poles to prevent people from crashing into the street sign there. That seems to happen about once every 6 months. If this project is built, people won't be going out onto Felicita to try to get on the freeways and deal with the lights there. They'll be coming down Miller and trying to enter the freeway from that side. They'll be going down Miller Avenue to try and enter the freeway from that route. And there is no room for parking on either side of Miller Avenue, as it currently is. Proposition S was passed in 1998 to prevent changes to the general plan without a vote from the public. And I'm asking that the city stick to what 2/3 of the voters in 1998 said in terms of Proposition S. I don't want to see Escondido become Escondido, and that's what it's becoming. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Clay?
My name is Barry Klick. I've lived in Escondido 40 years. I live on the east side of town. I like rural, and having been over there for 40-some years, I can appreciate how people feel about not wanting to change the atmosphere. We had to get used to some high rises, It wasn't a lot of fun, but we're used to it now, and it works. I also know that I've heard the City Council and the Planning Commission over the years talk about growth that has to happen in Escondido. We have to have businesses coming into town. We have, at one point, they had to do something about zoning so the businesses could make it. I haven't been keeping track, but I hope that's working. And when the businesses come in, you do want to have people to live in town to work at those businesses rather than commute from all kinds of other places. So I'm coming in having known the pastor of Bethel Church and him and his integrity and his plans and his thoughtfulness of people that I'm still convinced that the thinking and the planning that went into this whole project covered concerns of a lot of folks that maybe not have been described this evening. I'm encouraged that the staff has recommended this for approval, and I like to have confidence in knowing that the professionals on these staffs and the planners know how to do their homework, know how to think, know how to anticipate. So with that in mind, even though I personally understand and empathize with the emotions involved with this, I still need to go on record as a supporter of this project. And one more thing I'd like to say regarding traffic. I think that that's been thought of too, and I'm glad that after people heard about 260 or so more vehicles per day, that it was also clarified that that would be over a 24-hour period. So not that much per hour or per half hour. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will call up the next three, Don Romo, Eric Donnell, and Gary Kaz.
Good evening. I'm Don Romo. It's a pleasure to be here this evening with all of you. Thank you for taking the time to go ahead and review this and approve this for us. I know it's taken 3.5 years for this to be accomplished. There's been a lot of thought put into this. It's a really nice project for everybody involved. Right now, you can go ahead and approve this and move it on to the city council and just have this thing go to the next level. It's going to be a great project. People are going to be 250 new families, 258 new families coming to town. Think of how that's going to impact our community in a positive way. Instead of thinking about all the negatives, let's start to look at this as what's positive going to come out of this. There's a lot of good things that happen. Just the sales tax revenue that we'll generate from those 258 families will make an impact on the community. We need to look at development as a driver of our community, not as an impact to it or a negative impact to it. This is going to help that be accomplished. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Eric Donnell. I'm one of 3 homeowners directly across the street on Brotherton. So when we come out, we will be directly facing the Brotherton side of the project. A lot of traffic talk has come up today, and something that's really big. I don't know if you've been there when school is in or out. Buses line up on Brotherton, okay? They line up on the north side of the street, north side of the street. Once they park, you cannot fit 2 cars opposing coming across Miller or coming from Felicita. They have to stagger and take turns, okay? The fire department uses Brotherton to access Miller over Brotherton to all the homes up in there. So that Fire Station 5 accesses through there. And years ago, they had issues because the previous staff at the church had a women's Bible study that was very popular. And nobody wants to park in the back, they all parked in the front, and they actually impeded the fire truck getting through. The church immediately realized that issue and it stopped, okay? So they got through. But the problem is now this has not been addressed. Also, a new four-way stop, right now it's 2 stop signs. When you turn right on Miller and you're going down to the fruit stand, there's 2 ditches. You know there's no lines on that street? There's no dots on that street. It's about 1.75 cars wide. And the ditches are where when they're coming, you hang half a tire over, you go slow, you get past. And I travel that a lot because that's the best way to get to the freeway to head north, okay? Not to go down and try and get on Felicita, even in the middle of an average day, okay? In the morning, the commutes, traffic backs up from Citricado past the front of Ocean View, and at times will go even further. That's if it's not raining, okay? So traffic alone is a big impact on this area. People will come out, turn right on Felicita, will turn right on Brotherton, come up, turn right on Miller, and they're going to impact school with the children and the buses. We have been there since 62, our family.
Thank you. Your time has expired.
All right. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you, commissioners and staff, for attending to us tonight, and welcome, and thank you to the neighbors who've shown up. My name is Gary Cass. I serve as a pastor. I also live on the campus of the church, which is right down the street on West Felicita. I'm here tonight as a fellow member of the community, someone who shares obviously the same desires that we all have to see Escondido remain a healthy, safe, and thriving place for families and neighbors. And whenever property development comes up, of course, naturally, it raises important questions about traffic, infrastructure growth, and change. And these are understandable concerns. And they come from people who care deeply about their neighborhoods, and they deserve to be heard and respected and carefully considered. At the same time, I would like to respectfully share why I believe Bethel's plans will ultimately benefit our community. As a church campus, it is rarely just a place where people gather on a Sunday. It's best known as a community hub. It's a place that quietly serves and supports and strengthens its neighbors throughout the week. Bethel has been doing that for decades. Their ministry reaches well beyond the members of their own congregation and contributes to the civic life of Escondido in meaningful ways. For example, when local families face crises, Bethel's kinship support groups provide practical help and encouragement to relatives who step in to care for children who might otherwise end up in the foster care system. In support of public safety, Bethel has opened its facilities to serve as training locations for the Escondido Fire Department and Police Department. Bethel partners directly with Miller Elementary, supporting teachers, providing supplies, hosting teacher labs, and opening its facilities for youth activities in the city, including musical recitals that my grandchildren sang at recently. Bethel also serves our seniors and has graciously shared its campus with Slavic, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Filipino congregations, giving diverse groups within our community a welcoming place to gather in worship. Now, these might not always be the most visible contributions, but they do matter. They strengthen families, they support our first responders, they encourage our teachers and our students, and care for our seniors and bring people together. Allowing Bethel to responsibly develop the property will give them a greater capacity to continue and expand this kind of service. For that reason, I respectfully encourage you to look not only at what will be built on this property, but also what this church has already been building within our community. Stronger families, stronger relationships, and a stronger Escondido. Thank you for your time, and I urge that you support the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have more names to read off. Nancy Hansen, Ray Owens, and Mark Cohen. Yes, Nancy Hansen, Ray Owens, and Mark Cohen.
Thank you. I'm Nancy Hansen, and thanks, Ivan. You're always very gentle and kind when you return my emails. I have lived on Felicita Road more than 26 years. It's just a 2-lane road with 2 elementary schools, a skilled nursing facility, 2 fire stations, local and CAL FIRE, a county park known for wonderful corporate picnics, 2 freeway exits and 2 freeway entrances going north and south to and from Highway 15. This proposal of 258 apartments, as you've heard, would add 200 to 400 vehicles. Currently, when school's in session, I have to wait a prolonged time to get out of my driveway, as you've heard from others as well. But the impact that I feel would be the most disturbing is the finding that the project would result in potentially significant impacts related to vehicle miles traveled, abbreviated VMTs. But the plan to mitigate is even more disturbing. Install high visibility crosswalks near Miller School, an elementary school across the street from the church. Additional mitigation for these VMTs includes high visibility crosswalk at 8 other schools and city intersections not even near the proposed project. How do high visibility crosswalks mitigate 400 cars, especially when they're not even close in proximity to the project? This seems like apples and oranges to me, like grasping at straws, or worse, smoke and mirrors. Back in 2003, a city planner stated that the project is too dense for the area and suggested it should be about 1/10 of the proposed construction. It would appear that no one read, listened, or even considered those concerns. Thank you for the opportunity to express my opinion to the project and my opposition. I cannot support the negative impact it would have on our neighborhood, the amount of added traffic, and most of all, the danger to the children and other pedestrians when VMTs are magically reduced by high visibility crosswalks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, Commission. Thank you for having me here this evening and taking the time. I want to thank everybody that's in attendance tonight as well, not only sharing their hearts, whether for or against this project. My name is Pastor Ray Owens. I am the pastor at Bethel Baptist Church here in Escondido. And I just wanted to remind, as I begin, saying Bethel is not new to this community. We have been a part of Escondido since 1949, and for generations, families in this community have worshiped with us, have raised their children with us, received help from us, served alongside of us. So this community is not simply where people gather for one day out of a week. This is also home to us. Our church was purchased in the 70s, like we heard tonight, and over the decades we have watched also as well the community grow and change. And today we want to have this opportunity that we believe is very important, that we want to invest into Escondido for the next generation. As you heard through our slides today, that half the property with high density residential, while us on the Bethel side will be able to remodel our existing 2 buildings where we are able to serve with the children and the youth, the young adult, the senior adults within our community, and all the other ministries that you even heard tonight that we support and do behind the scenes. We will construct a new sanctuary that will give us the capacity to continue to serve our growing congregation and our community for generations to come. But this is much more for us than just a building project. It's about capacity to ministry and to do ministry. So as you've heard tonight, Bethel has had a long history of serving beyond just our own congregation. We want to continue to be a place where families can find help, where young people can be encouraged, where counseling can take place, where seniors can gather and be cared for, where the community organizations can come together and find a place to gather, where schools within our district can use our facilities for the needs that they have, and where we can respond when our neighbors are in need. The Bible gives us a principle, and what brought us here and been a part of this journey is a vision that we've had. And it comes from the Bible. It's Jeremiah 29:7. It says this. It says, God tells his people to seek the welfare of the city where they live and to pray for it. Because when the city prospers, they will prosper with us. And that is our heart and vision with this project before you today. It's our heart for Escondido. We want to continue to see this city flourish. And so we understand with this development will bring legitimate questions and concerns, many we've heard tonight. And we want to be good neighbors as the church throughout this entire process, but we believe this project represents a long-term interest and the investment into our community, where you're going to have a church that has a legacy here that will choose to stay, to rebuild, to serve, and to continue to help Escondido flourish for the next 77 years. And that's always been my heart and vision throughout this project, to honor the legacy of our Escondido residents who have planted and established this church, who have done ministry for decades. And I want to make sure that we can do that for another 77 years as a result of this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If I may read the next three names, I have Lorraine Hirschleb, Lawrence Warner, and William Comstock.
Good evening, Council. Mark Cohen. I suppose one of the things that I want to talk about is just the contrast to a project that took place here that went right through this neighborhood many, many years ago. When the I-15 corridor came to be, there was major opposition. So what we have tonight, I think, is some passionate people talking about their neighborhood. But if the I-15 wasn't there, if everybody has said, as they did back then, we can go to the Center City corridor, and that should be the existing route, what would our lives look like? The economic benefit for making some changes, you just can't compare that to not having that freeway. So in the same way, having growth and development is something that's going to be needed. We're constantly doing that when we think about the changes going on at the mall. I think that's going to add 1% to the jobs in Escondido. The housing that we're talking about, 258 units, is a much smaller percentage, but still very important. So I'd like to just contrast what once was a NIMBY objection to the freeway is now also the same type of objection to increased growth. We can't continue to stay as we are. We have to grow. That is just a fact of life. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Lorraine?
Yes, Lorraine, Lorraine Hirschleb, Lawrence Warner, and William Comstock.
Good evening. My name is Lawrence Werner, and I live on Montview Drive, about a half a mile from the project site. A lot of what I was going to talk about tonight has already been covered, but I have two concerns if the project is approved. The first one is parking spillover onto surrounding roads and traffic congestion on Miller Avenue during school pickup and drop-off hours. Regarding parking, I went through all of the documentation, and I haven't found any single study in there that shows that the 1.7 parking ratio is adequate to prevent spillover of parking into on-street, and has been covered by about 6 different people. The Brotherton, Felicita's not going to add any parking. Brotherton doesn't have room for parking, and Miller Avenue doesn't have parking, so the surrounding streets simply can't absorb any additional overflow parking. The second, so what I'm asking is, if we're going to proceed with this, let's actually do a study that shows that it will actually will work. I don't think it will. My second concern is Miller Avenue during the school dismissal traffic. This project's own local mobility analysis identifies that intersection of Brotherton and Miller as being deficient in the long-term project scenario and recommends an all-way stop, and that was mentioned earlier. But Miller's Elementary's dismissal traffic occurs during a very specific period, and the city council indicated that the analysis that was done in the morning rush hour and the evening rush hour, but no specific study was done to analyze during the school's afternoon dismissal window. And anybody who's been on Miller Avenue during either school drop-off or school pickup will know that the traffic already backs up southbound, and adding a four-way stop at that intersection will just wreak havoc in that neighborhood. So what I would ask then is that before the all-way stop is implemented, that we actually do a traffic count and intersection analysis during the elementary school's actual dismissal period. And I feel like these are relatively modest measures, but I think they would address two very specific impacts on the surrounding neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, I have Jeff Weber and Teddy Jackson.
Commissioners, thank you very much. I'm Jeff Weber. I live in Escondido, California, and I've lived in the community a long time. Tonight, you've heard a lot of reasons why this is not the right project in this location. The lack of infrastructure in this community. This project's like throwing a giant boulder into a small pond. There's going to be a lot of ripple effects. I think they're going to be detrimental. So I ask you to look outside the boundaries of this project, outside the building envelope, and think about the impact of having another complex like this in our town. I think we're overdone. That's my own personal opinion, that we don't have a housing crisis. We have an affordability crisis, but we don't have a housing crisis. When I drive by a lot of these larger projects that have been done in recent years, there's a lot of windows that are dark in the evening, which tells me there's a significant vacancy factor. I haven't had that confirmed, but of all the types of housing in our town, the one that's the most difficult to manage, and it's going to be here for a long time if it gets built, is going to be a apartment. I didn't read the staff report, but these are not condos, am I correct?
That is correct. They're multifamily apartments for rent.
For my family. Secondly, I didn't see how many bedrooms are in this unit complex when it's built out.
This is actually a time for public comment, not a time to ask questions of staff. Sorry.
Okay, can I ask through the chair, because you've asked the staff how many bedrooms are in the project?
Well, that was presented. We would have you present your discussion, but we won't be interactive unless you have questions.
That's fine. I respect that. The point is that this will not park. When they built the project across the street from the transit station, Mark Baker, who owns the building on the corner that's going to be taken down, had to hire armed people to keep the people in that new project from parking on his office site. So it's very difficult. Parking, I haven't seen a project built in this town in 10 years that has adequate parking. We're a car-centric culture, and I just don't think with the infrastructure that exists in that local area, this project is the wrong thing in the wrong place. And it's up to you guys to decide that, and think about it, and think outside the box, and decide if we really need this project, particularly in this location. And in the interest of full disclosure, I was a member of the church when we used to have meetings in the assembly room at Miller School. John Schwartz was the officiator at my wedding, so I go back a long way with the church, and I hope you get what you need. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Teddy Jackson, and I represent Protect Rural Escondido, a grassroots community organization now 1,000 strong and growing. This is definitely resonating with our community. We are focused on giving residents a voice and actionable ways to participate as rural unincorporated communities surrounding Escondido increasingly face annexation and dramatic density increases, sometimes advanced under the broader banner of missing middle housing. Transparency and good government begin with providing the public accurate and current information. So I would like to put on the record tonight that the city's website is significantly out of date. The Planning Commission membership is dated, link and file is dated November 7th, 2023, and still lists David Barber rather than Mayor Dane White's appointee, Corey Gustafson. You haven't spoke tonight, Corey. I respectfully ask that this be corrected promptly and that the public record accurately reflect when Commissioner Gustafson began serving. This is my first time addressing this commission, but it will not be my last. Protect Rural Escondido was formed in response to Aldea Escondido, a proposal seeking to dramatically increase density up to 30 times current zoning, county zoning, on approximately 27 acres surrounded by a century-old rural neighborhood of Birch, Idaho, and Park Hill. This is not simply vacant land. This area is part of Escondido's historic landscape, home to equestrian and farm animal property rights, and the heart of a once vast citrus-growing region connected to Escondido philanthropist L.R. Green, descendants of President Ulysses S. Grant, and founding families who helped establish institutions and businesses that shaped this city. What we've learned over the past year researching this project is deeply concerning. City departments and leadership have too often failed to be forthcoming and transparent, and residents have faced unnecessary obstacles simply trying to discover public information that affects our community. That kind of heavy-handed approach creates distrust and puts good people at odds with good people. And I cannot help but wonder whether the residents here tonight in opposition to the Alexian development have experienced something similar: inadequate 500-foot public noticing, limited awareness of important project impacts, and learning the full scope of a proposal only weeks before it reaches this commission. This is not meaningful public information or community engagement. This public should not be discovering major changes to their neighborhoods at the end of the process. They should be concluded at the beginning, because long after tonight's meeting is over, the people affected by these decisions will still be living there. So I ask you to consider not only whether a project can be approved, but whether the public truly was given a fair opportunity and meaningful opportunities to understand it, question it. Good planning builds more than project, it builds public trust. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one more speaker, Amy Jones.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Amy Maggard Jones, and I am a resident at 2101 Miller Avenue. I am here to talk about the hydrological effects of this project, and I have some questions and comments based off of actual real-time observances during rain at the project. And if possible, I would like to be able to provide the city videos to help with their decision-making regarding the project design. So clean water means clean communities. Per the 2015 U.S. Department of Interior U.S. Geological Survey map, Escondido Quadrangle, Oak Creek is clearly reflected just to the south side of the 15 freeway at Felicita and Citricado. And so I am asking if the city has clearly examined the effects of this development to the San Dieguito watershed that feeds Lake Hodges. This project is requesting a grading exemption, and that is required when a slope does not meet the guidelines of Article 55, Section 33-1066, implying there is a potential risk for potential noncompliance to runoff and thus detrimental effects to a protected creek system. Per the requirements of the MS4 permit, the city engineer must evaluate BMPs for compliance during construction as well as post-construction. And these are for bioretention, infiltration systems, vegetative swales, runoff controls, etc. And as a reminder, the type of BMPs are also affected by project size, intensity, and proximity to impaired water bodies, such as Oak Creek and Lake Hodges. On January the 22nd, 2024, there was a total rainfall of 2.73 inches, falling primarily between 7:30 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. This was preceded by 2 days of respective 0.34 and 0.25 inches of rain. Again, I have videos of this rain and the impacts on the affected area. I would like the city engineer, in your review, to guarantee there is no impact to not only the health of Oak Creek, but also to the neighboring homes on Palm Terrace.
Thank you. Your time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have all of those wishing to speak tonight have had opportunity to do so. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Want to again thank the public for this participation. To see the amount of people that have taken the time to come and express your thoughts is very much in line with what we're grateful for. We're very grateful to know your thoughts. And this commission is, I speak for what I've observed, very grateful to hear that and to deliberate on it. We will go ahead and close the public comment section of this, of that hearing, and we will move to discussion amongst the planning commissioners. Questions, thoughts?
Okay. It's a great project. It's well designed. I really like what the church is, wants to remodel. They want to continue to serve the community. I think that's wonderful. But I got a real problem with the traffic. I myself have used Miller to get around, to get on northbound I-15 in the morning when there's traffic. And it's pretty bad now. I mean, not pretty bad, it's really bad now. I don't fully understand. There seems to be a discrepancy in what the applicant says they're going to widen and what the city wants to do there. I don't think it's enough. I think I'm of the opinion we should not approve this and send them back to the drawing board and get some more traffic stuff designed something that will work. Because right now that little area right there with the school, Miller School, and the buses and everything, and getting on the southbound and northbound freeway it's just awful in the morning. And right now it's at a D. LOS is a D. It's practically unserviceable, and it's headed for an E and finally an F with this new traffic. So I'm in opposition to it as it stands. Thank you, Mr. Jester, or Commissioner Jester. Always appreciate your comments. I come from a broader perspective on this, and the perspective goes back to 2012 when this area was designated for office professional use. A much more intense designation than, certainly what the community out there has enjoyed for many, many years. So when I look at that intensification that occurred back in 2012, and that was approved by a vote of the city, that becomes really important to my decision-making on how this became a high-density residential type of project as opposed to the office type of use. So when you're comparing both of those designations and what the intensity can be out there, the residential use creates, I don't know, about half the traffic. Understanding the traffic concerns that are out there and the parking issues that can potentially occur, of course, those issues, and along with my fellow commissioners, become a great concern. So as a part of the process of going through a environmental review process, staff reviewing this, the various studies that are required in order to evaluate a project, mitigation measures and conditions come about to help reduce those impacts. And that's what we see today as the result of a lot of negotiating that has gone on between the applicant and where they would have liked to have been and where they are today. So where they've liked to have been is 270 units. That has been actually reduced down to 258. They could have provided only 331 parking spaces, but they are providing 441. So my inclination here is based on the review that's been done by city staff and their experts that they have on staff and consulting with them, is to support this project. However, I have a couple of conditions that I would prefer to have added to the conditions of approval. One of them is related to off-site parking, and that off-site parking being, the frontages of Felicita as well as Brotherton. So those should be designated as no parking off-site. And that should stay in place at a minimum until Brotherton gets widened to its ultimate width. And at that point, I think then a reevaluation could occur to lift that no parking provision. So that would be the one condition that I would like to see added, is no parking on Brotherton along the frontage. I understand how development can affect people's lives. So where I live, there was a 750-unit development proposed, and certainly a lot of concerns about the amount of traffic that would come where I lived and where I've been living for 50 years. Because it was in a rural area, and absolutely I was concerned. But the end result of all 750 homes being built and what I experienced trying to leave my driveway is that certainly there are cars there that weren't there before, but it may be 3 or 4, and then I'm able to get out. So at this point, if we would choose to move down a pathway to recommend approval, I would do that based on adding that no parking on Brotherton provision.
Question for you on that, Commissioner Weiler. So your condition that you're proposing is that no off-site parking be allowed on Brotherton for a period of time. Is that correct?
The simplified would be no parking on Brotherton. And at some point off into the future, Planning Commission, City Council can lift that if they so chose, but that's not a part of the condition. The condition would just solely be no parking on Brotherton along the frontage.
I suppose I have a couple of questions.
I got another question as well.
Yeah.
If that's all right.
Go ahead.
I'm not familiar with this Proposition 9 Joshua brought up about a change in zoning having to go to the voters for approval.
I think you're talking about Proposition Prop S.
He said it was Proposition 9.
I believe he said Prop S.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is, Prop S does require a vote, okay, a vote of the electorate for certain types of of amendments to the general plan. It does not apply to this general plan amendment because the general plan area is commercial. So it doesn't, Prop S doesn't apply. It's just not applicable. Oh, and do you look like you're questioning that?
Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Just wanted to make sure.
As I reviewed, I tried to not only very much appreciate in listening to the comments that were made tonight, I tried to quantify a little bit. And what I heard was the concerns brought up by you guys were traffic, parking, children's safety, and appropriateness in this community. By and large, the huge one was traffic, obviously, from what we heard tonight. Okay, I'm speaking in terms of quantity of comments, but sure, that's a significant concern, of course. What I'd like to ask is, put you on the spot a little bit, I guess, but obviously, traffic is a challenge, as is. Obviously, adding this will impact traffic. We have ways of measuring that. That's what we rely on. We have environmental impact reports. We have categories of impact that we attain to tell us whether we're doing enough, whether we're doing. How would for the comfort level? There have been comments made tonight that, well, the numbers are this, but does that really pan out to reality in terms of parking, in terms of traffic? What could we offer in terms of an explanation to the public tonight to help give some assurance that we can have confidence in the idea that the traffic has been looked at and it is in what is considered an appropriate level when we look at the environmental impact report results? How can we give them comfort that traffic has been looked at properly?
I think a great way to do that would be to include the not only the existing, but also what the traffic's going to look like with the project. And that, to me, was missing in the EIR, I'm sorry.
Of where it stands prior to the project
Right.
and where it would be after the project?
Correct.
I thought that the answer was that is in the EIR.
I didn't see it. He said it was on page 20, or 4.1120, I think.
Oh, and do we have that information?
I didn't see it.
Yeah, I mean, you had CEQA that now uses VMT as the standard for measuring impact. It has really nothing, it doesn't really speak to what you would experience leaving your driveway. It speaks to the total number of miles that vehicles are going to travel here, or they're going to be added to the area. The level of service, which is our general plan quality of life standard still, was analyzed, and that would still speak to, things like congestion. And it was done, and so it did show there are impacts. It does show that these intersections, do not operate at our standards. But the project's impact was limited to, a small percent. You also have the fact that we don't control these intersections. They're Caltrans, either they're entirely in Caltrans right away, or they are, and so Caltrans also looked at, Caltrans, I would say, was submitted to 3 times at least, and they went through the whole traffic. They looked at, they modeled it themselves, and made their recommendations, and they came up with just the fair share as we have as well. So it really falls, I think the improvements that need to occur out here, do fall primarily in Caltrans court. And a lot of the backup that you're talking about is ramp metering. It's, it's the freeway system breaking down on a given day, and traffic diverting, to the next downstream on-ramp, off-ramp, and, ultimately clogging up on Via Rancho, and Center City is kind of the last backup. So I would say it was, it was analyzed. We've come up with what can be done, and there are things being done. There's widenings being done. There's the dual lefts being put in place here. There's intersections, with stop controls. So I just say it was not for lack of analysis. It's just come down to what can be done here.
I know that the city uses the TIA, the LOS, and also the HCM for their analysis. Is that correct? For their level of service matrix?
Yeah, the TIA, our TIA guidelines kind of govern how LOS is analyzed.
Right.
And those were followed.
And then the mobility and infrastructure element, but also the highway capacity manual. That's the Caltrans you were referring to?
Yeah, that's probably that's in behind our TIA guidelines.
Right.
Okay.
I missed all that, I guess. I didn't see any of that.
Help me as I try to boil this down, and especially for those that are here that have no idea what acronyms are for. But what I think I'm hearing is that when I hear VMTs as a measure of impact, that to me speaks a little bit, and these are vehicle miles traveled, speaks a little bit of, it's kind of a big thing, has to do with environmental, has to do with other things, doesn't really say, boy, in your community, you're really going to be impacted or not. It's sort of an indirect, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it is it's more looking at the impact on the actual environment. I guess you could say greenhouse gases, not entirely, but the idea is you're trying to get people out of their cars and to walk and bicycle instead. So the mitigation measures, I think was brought up as, why these high visibility crosswalks or other things that make it safer to cross an intersection. Well, that's the idea, is that if somebody is right on that edge of, hey, can I walk there or not, safety is a big consideration. So that's why, pretty universally, those type of improvements have been adopted and recognized as mitigation.
Okay, that makes sense to me. And it says, hey, what can we do? Well, we can't widen the street. We can't make the traffic better by widening the street. That's not possible. But we can make it safer. And we have certain levers we can pull, and we're trying to do that. And Caltrans has some of those levers that we don't have, apparently, as well. We also have a point was brought up that we do have to look at not only, yes, we know that traffic's tough. We know that traffic will get worse with more people, obviously. We know we have limited levers we can pull. We also know, as was brought up by previously, that we have development must happen. Someone made a good comment when they said, hey, we looked at the 15 and everybody hated the idea, now we love it. That's always true. We always have love-hate relationship with progress and with development. And we do have to look at if this project doesn't go through, what project will? As development does happen, we may actually have a worse impact on traffic and the other concerns with a different project.
That's a big what if.
It is.
I would beg to differ with you on the idea that you can't widen it, the street. This Felicita itself is designated as a 4-lane connector. It is currently a 2-lane connector. After improvements, it's still not going to be a 4-lane connector, and that's based on a Caltrans model that by the year 2035, it has to be a 4-lane connector. It's already getting a D and an E. It's almost unserviceable. There's just not enough room for the cars.
When you discuss widening as an option, I guess I would ask the question, is that even a possibility of widening? That is not an option, is it?
Not really.
Okay. So that isn't really
so
on
it's
the
surface
table.
streets. That's the only option you got.
Yeah, I guess I'm not following which widening you're asking about. Ultimately, Felicita would be, it's designated collector, so it would be those, 4 lanes up and around the bend and, to Felicita. From Citricado / Gamble south, it's a local collector. And so it's been, with those projects south of there, it has now been built to something close to that or close to that. At least in the city boundaries. I think from the park entrance south, it would be less than that. But yeah, I mean, the biggest driver of traffic here is the on-ramps and off-ramps of I-15, Caltrans, controls with the ramp metering. In other cases, they've added additional storage, vehicle storage on the ramp, additional lanes of vehicle storage. But those are all things that are outside of kind of our purview. And so I think we've, coming up with the fair share is what we can do here at this point.
Okay.
First, I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. It's important to be involved in the community, and we appreciate everybody coming out. I also want to thank staff for the hard work they put in on this project. And look, it's a tough decision here. I think I have great respect for the folks at Bethel Church trying to keep their church up to date, trying to keep their faith community going. I think that's unbelievably important in today's Escondido, today's California, today's America. But when I look at this beautiful project, which, look, I certainly want, we need more housing in San Diego County, Escondido, California, the United States. What we have to ask ourselves in Escondido is what type of housing. And there has been, again, I think this project is a good project that needs to be fixed in many ways or improved upon. Escondido is growing. Escondido is building housing. And what we want is housing where people we know are going to stay, that they're going to invest in their community and they're going to own. This is not a condo project. This is not a single-family home project, which I can't, I've been driving through this area for decades. And it's obvious to anybody who's done this on their way to Major Market or Trader Joe's, this is a single family house community. There's other places in Escondido that are not. So I think what we want is development, we want housing, but we want housing that is in line and in the character of the area around it. And I also think that when you have folks coming in who are able to buy housing, they'll invest in Escondido. That they will want to work with the folks who are going to be their neighbors for a long time and to fixing a lot of the problems we've talked about tonight. And we have a neighborly effort at trying to move Escondido in the direction we all want. So I think that there's potential in this project. I think that everybody in this room wants to make sure that Bethel Church uses this property in a way that grows grows the faith community in Escondido, while also recognizing that part of Escondido has a certain character that we need to keep. So for that purpose, I'm going to vote no on the project. For the moment, until we can come together more maybe and look at different options that we have of maintaining the character of that particular part of Escondido. And I just want to put one more thing in there if I haven't gone on long enough. I just want to thank Teddy for reminding me to speak tonight. My wife would certainly say that I speak too much, but I guess this was a moment where I didn't speak enough. So thank you for reminding me.
All right. Barring any more questions or thoughts, I think I'll share some of mine. And I do appreciate very much, as I said earlier, all of the comments that were made tonight. Your participation in this meeting is really important to us, and it's important to our community as well. And I do really appreciate the staff for their efforts on this. We're greatly, greatly aided by their professionalism. And for my colleagues as well, your comments have been very helpful, very appropriate. As I look at this, I look at a lot of components of this project that I really think are great. And I see a lot of, there's three things that are sought here. One is efforts on a church, trying to, modernize and increase what they're doing in the community in a really positive way, and I love it. I see efforts for, a daycare facility, and then I see the third component, which is, hey, how do you finance this? How do you cover it and do it in a positive way to the community? And that's with the housing development portion, or the rental unit portion. So. That's where the sticky point is. That's where it's a little more difficult. And balancing what is best for all those parties, a lot of shareholders in this, but what does the city get? What does the community get out of this? And for that, I think as I stew over this, I think, boy, we do need progress. We do need development. It's going to come at a cost. We're going to have, more traffic. We're going to have a lot of negatives. We're also going to have a lot of positives. But ultimately, I look at this and I say, as was shared, does this fit the neighborhood? Is this the right thing for this neighborhood at this time? And I guess I do have concerns on the density of what's being proposed, and does that fit the neighborhood? So I am I'm struggling with that in terms of whether that's a good fit for this neighborhood. I think we've done at least in my mind, attacking the difficult issue of the traffic. It's a tough one because we have certain things, certain levers we can pull and certain levers we can't. But I guess that's where my biggest concern right now is on the context for the community and what this would do. We have on the table, we have a proposed condition, and then we have commissioners that have expressed their opinions on where they stand on the issue. Do we have a motion from any of the commissioners?
Before or if I make a motion, there has, as I've said, this particular location is right at the intersection of a designated major arterial and the I-15. And what happens when you have major roadways come together is the intensification of the development of that area occurs. This one just happens to be the first one that's coming through this door. And because the designation is what it is, and the intensification is within the general plan, this is going to continue. Why? Because Escondido continues to grow. There is a housing need. Granted, I like ownership, but we need all sorts of housing. The rental market right now, from what I hear, is it's expensive. Well, one of the ways to decrease that expense of those rents is to create more competition, more units into the market, and then everybody that has the apartment complexes have to compete with one another and have incentives provided so that they can get people housed at a more affordable level. So as much as I agree and I like ownership units, I think that's critical to a community, we still, not everybody wants to have a home ownership. And as I see younger people out there that desire that home ownership component in their life, there's plenty of people that don't want that. And so I think the variety of housing is a necessity. It's close to the freeway. Improvements will occur over time and help that intersection become better. As far as the widening of Felicita, yeah, I think the width is there with the right-of-way. I think the striping is probably what needs to be done in order to create 4 lanes through this area, because that's the right-of-way width for a 4-lane arterial. Is that correct, Mr. Tunnell?
Well, for the from the project down to Citricado, you should be able to get the 4 lanes. North of Brotherton, there'd have to be a lot of widening, a lot of impact to those properties. Probably some right-of-way. There would be a need for right-of-way to finish that.
And, yeah, and that's from the project towards Center City?
Yeah, that would be from Brotherton up towards Major Market.
Right, correct. Yeah. So, I mean, those are my comments. So I think it's a good project. I think it does help the church to maintain their location in that area. I think that the design of the project is very good. I think that setting the project back away from the east and the southern property lines and the changes that were made, I think that benefits those adjacent property owners where, the next project may not. So I'm still in support of this with that extra condition on no parking on Brotherton.
Commissioner Weiler, would you like to, are you interested in entertaining a motion with your condition?
Unless somebody else wants to make a motion.
Is anyone else contemplating making a motion?
All right, I move to approve resolution number 2026-08R with the added condition of no parking on Brotherton, along with the modifications that were provided by staff.
Prior to a vote, does anyone wish to make a comment? Okay, we'll call for a vote.
Do we get a second?
I'm sorry. Yes, we need a second. I will second.
Motion to approve resolution number 2026-08R with the added condition of approval for no parking on Brotherton and other modifications made by staff. Chair Spear?
Yes.
Commissioner Weiler?
Yes.
Commissioner Gustafson?
No.
Commissioner Jester?
No.
The vote is 2-2, resulting in a tie for the approval of resolution number 2026-08R with the added condition of, okay, sorry, apologies.
Okay, thank you. Okay, again, thank you to those that participated tonight. We appreciate that. Planning Commissioners report. Do we have anything from any of the commissioners? No? Okay. City Planner?
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioners. Yeah, we just have a couple items. I apologize, my computer's not loading, so I'm going to have to go off memory. We do have a couple items coming up in the upcoming meetings. I believe one is a substantial conformance for architectural. The second is a conditional use. Let me hold off for a second.
We could ask you to keep your noise down so that we could wrap up the meeting, please.
Ties a win. It means it goes on to the city council. A tie is basically a win, and it goes on to the city council for approval. So go to the city council meeting and speak there.
We'll ask you to either stay or exit as you choose, but we're continuing our meeting, so we'd ask for it to keep the noise down, please.
All right, thank you, sir. Sorry about that, Commissioners. Yeah, there are a couple items that were listed on the tentative future agenda. Nothing significant in terms of substantial projects. You'll see, again, I believe there was a substantial conformance. There we go. Yes, a substantial conformance, or I'm sorry, a certificate of appropriateness is a historic property. They're just doing a second-story addition on the garage. The other item listed is a conditional use modification for religious facility. So those are the private development projects coming forth. The one I did want to identify that's probably of interest to you is City Council has authorized funding during this last budget for about $2.25 million to go through some updates to a lot of our guiding planning documents. So general plan amendments and master plan amendments. We're actually going to be conducting a presentation before City Council tomorrow evening on that. It's been branded Escondido 2040. Again, normally we're looking out 10, 20-year time horizons. But we do intend to bring forward that presentation to this body probably next month, just to identify what the whole scope of that project is. We're currently in the process of going through an RFP for that. So more information to come, but that likely will populate a good part of this body's time over the next year and a half with that effort. And then aside from that, you'll see also on agenda item 4, there's some additional policy work forthcoming. The El Caballo Parks Master Plan, that's been listed for a while. That will be hopefully forthcoming this fall. And then some additional housing updates, objective design standards we're going to be bringing forward hopefully also within the next few months, as well as a focus update to the sign code. So less on the private development side, but getting potentially heavier on some of the policy and legal documents. So.
Good.
So thank you.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. We will, meeting stands adjourned.